Let's jump down into the lane now and say a very good morning to Neil Crompton.
Very good morning to you, Jess. Good morning, everybody. And it's actually beautiful down here at the moment. All that wind that Mark was talking about before has disappeared. We've got a clean blue sky out there at the moment. We're about to get underway with the practice session. Brad Jones is with me, and the reason he's with me is they've been doing an awesome job with their pit stops recently. Yesterday with the car behind me, car number 8, a 3.8-second pit stop. And as we progress to the end of the Pertec Pit Stop Challenge and we have the grand finale at Bathurst, you guys have done an awesome job to be the fastest thus far.
Thanks, Neil. We've got 2 cars in the top 4 this year, and I'm really looking forward to the challenge, not to mention the check.
You do love a dollar, don't you?
Absolutely.
What's the secret to the pit stop success? Because you've got cars first and third.
Oh, look, I think the guys train pretty hard for it. I'm really, we've had a crew together for a reasonable amount of time. We've got a new guy in this year, but really it's consistency in practice, and the guys take it pretty seriously.
For folks at home who don't understand what goes on a daily basis, there's a huge amount of prep that goes on in the shop, and you literally micromanage every aspect, all the biomechanics, all the physical preparation, what the anti-seize on the hubs, practicing wheels on and off all day long.
There's all that sort of stuff. Plus we have a pit stop practice car at work, and we practice a couple of times a day as well.
All right, mate. Expectations today. We were talking, Jess, Mark and Craig were talking a few moments ago about different atmospheric conditions. We've really had very different day on day from Friday. What are your expectations today as it's rubbing up a bit more?
Well, the biggest problem for us as a team is qualifying. We have fast cars in practice and in the race, but we're struggling to get that last little bit of grip out of them on the green. So I think today we'll mix it up a little bit more again, and just a bit more grip. Trickier to set the car up.
I saw Macaulay was quick yesterday, but unfortunately got turned down there at turn 1, but he has really good pace at the moment.
Yeah, this place meets his eye, and he's got a pretty serious turn of speed. So hopefully, if he can get through the first couple of laps, he could get a good result here.
Thanks for having a chat. Enjoy your day.
Thanks, Neil.
Thanks, Bradley. Cars are at 45 degrees, set to go out now for our final practice session before we get into Armour All qualifying later on. And remember that this will contribute to the Armour All qualifying lineup for what's going to come this afternoon. With race number 22 of our championship, we've got 200 kilometres of racing to come. Love the sound of those cars roaring into the pit lane, and about to start another brand new day of activity. And it's absolutely gorgeous in the sunshine out there, particularly if you're a bit of a cold-blooded animal like myself. So we had a fantastic day of racing on this racetrack yesterday. Information coming to us from Virgin Australia. We'll wander down to our 10th venue in the series, and here we are, Tailem Bend. We're just on 105 kilometres to the southeast of the centre of Adelaide in this virtually brand new facility that the Peregrine Corporation and Sam Shaheen built just a little over 12 months ago. 4.95 kilometres with a very high average speed. Top speed here, and particularly with no wind out there at the moment, is going to get closer to that 280 kilometres an hour. It's pretty gentle on brakes. There's no bumps out there, and it's a very difficult surface for everybody to come to terms with as far as tyre matching is concerned. We'll do the flyover and look around the racetrack. There's passing opportunities down there at turn 1. They run the cars hard on the limiter in second gear up at turn 2 and 3, and then start to build speed all the way up to 200 plus kilometres an hour into this left-hander that's got a closing radius and an off camber, so it's easy to run wide down there, and then plunging down this hill. We've seen fantastic action so far this weekend with the cars literally flying off the road all the way down to the bottom there at turn 12. More than a couple of drivers have found their way off the edge of the road and digging out holes behind the curbs. And then you start this long left-hand approach through 14 and 15 and the build-up back towards the pit lane area, down to the second last corner where there's a passing opportunity, and then a slight uphill rise to the final corner, and then coming back onto that start-finish straight. Beautiful racetrack, unbelievable facilities, 4-storey pit building. There's a kart track, there's a 4-wheel drive track. This is all brand new, represents millions of dollars worth of investment, and it is a wonderful place for us to race. And next year, the announcement was actually made yesterday by Sam Shaheen that there will be an endurance race at some point during the calendar at this venue. Now, if you weren't with us in the coverage yesterday, a marvellous day for Shell V-Power Racing and for Scott McLaughlin, who now extends his championship lead. But he had a lot of pressure this time round, and it seesawed anywhere between about 0.8 of a second out to about 1.5 to 2 seconds between this man and car number 55, Chaz Mostert, who's been very quick so far this weekend. So they certainly didn't have it all their own way. The points did fall for Scott McLaughlin in his favour, and he continues to open up that margin. But it'll be curious to see what happens with very different conditions out there again today. And then next in the queue was Anton De Pasquale. in the Penrite Racing Holden Commodore for Erebus Motorsport. It was his second podium of 2019, an impressive performance for him. That is turn 6 that I was talking about before, and you can see the amount of space on the outside of that corner, and the corner cambers away, and this is the downhill run. So Jamie Whincup's gone quickest off the bat. They did a pretty good job in recovery yesterday, both Jamie Whincup and Shane Van Gisbergen, remembering that both Shane and Jamie were victorious at this location last year, and Jamie earned a couple of pole positions, and early in the weekend they had their hands full trying to find a setup with those cars. Quite extraordinary to see the Red Bull Holden Racing team going through that kind of trauma, getting themselves back to a competitive position. But such is the demand of this racetrack. 18 corners, high complexity, difficult to find a balance and grip. I think if your car's marginally out here, and we can even see a bit of wheel work going on here with McLaughlin at the moment, then it's amplified and it becomes an even bigger problem. So the order at the moment is in fact both those Red Bull Holdens at the top, but we haven't seen full representative times from everybody. Still very low ambient conditions at the moment, but a lot of UV on the racetrack. And this was the benchmark car yesterday, just continues to march on with those victories. He didn't end up getting the Armour All pole yesterday. They didn't have sufficient fuel in the car. He had 3/4 of a second margin over the field at a point. But ultimately, when we had a shower of rain, and just a moment or two later, the track gripped up and Chaz Mostert's car was in phase. He was in very good shape and he was able to get on with the job and go and close out the deal and grab that Armour All pole, which certainly invigorated us. It's great to see somebody else in the mix. Cam Waters has been strong here this weekend as well in the Monster Energy Ford Mustang. He's going to share with Michael Caruso later in the year. We've got a foot cam on this car again this weekend, and this is a place, Mark Scaife, where the footwork is ultra important, because the run down the hill at this place yesterday and Friday, boy, we've seen some work rate in the cockpits, and some of it's been a bit wild.
It certainly has. Good morning, Neil. It is a place that requires a lot of real technique, and that's not just from a steering perspective, but from the work you can see there. Cam Waters with just a little left foot brake and then a little tap of the brake to bring the pedal up. Nice heel and toe action, a little bump on the throttle, so there's a lot of what we call brake modulation, and there's also a lot of trail braking required at this place. And the amount of throttle, so he actually ran wide there. He had a second go at the pedal. He was going to go off the road, so he actually had to jump back on the brake and slow the car before he went off. And then there's a lot of throttle application that needs to be very measured. That little left foot brake also in the middle of the corner there to pull the nose of the car down. So there's a lot of throttle steering. The corners are long and complex. And then there's a great diversity in corners, because some of them are tight and sharp, just like turn 17. So when Neil was taking you through the track map, he was describing a lot of rise and fall, a lot of difference in speed, a lot of technique required, and a lot of difficulty based on the conditions and the grip level. There's a lot of people that have been off the road. This man in particular, I've never seen Van Gisbergen through the course of a weekend off the road as many times. In fact, he was cheering yesterday when he completed a lap, which is just unbelievable for one of the best drivers in the field to be celebrating the prospect of finishing a lap, which is just extraordinary. Now, the conditions, we've spoken about it, that's the furthest that anybody has been off. As we watch Scott Pye so far down into the mulga, that's off turn 10. The reason that is because this morning is the earliest that we've run the cars all weekend. So there's a lot of dew, a lot of moisture on the grass, and he was so far down. Let's look at Carl Foe on the radio, but he was so far down off turn 10 then, there's Matty Nielsen, that he was right up on that banking that no one through the course of this weekend has made it that far. So this is Fabian Coulthard, and that was going to be a good lap prior to this tough second last corner, turn 17, understeers off. In fact, he was on his personal best and the best for the whole of the session on sector 2, but he's driven past the pit.
Really good lap, mate. That was on for P1 until that little incident there.
There you go. That was the message. He was on for P1. So Coulthard, who had a pretty ordinary day yesterday in the race, he ended up 12th. And there you go. He just couldn't get it stopped. He can't retard the car hard enough. And as a consequence, understeered straight off the road. On board now, have a listen. No, and as he turned it, because the front wheels are on the border of locking, and what he wanted then from the car, he couldn't get the car to turn hard enough for him at the final section, and then he should have come into the pit there as he was communicated with the team. He should have gone left, he didn't, and the guys have told him that that was a good lap. Good morning, Rihanna.
Yeah, morning, Scapey. Yesterday, fairly chaotic opening few laps to yesterday's race. Number of cars suffering damage. Will Davison was one of those cars. He had a disastrous day, had that engine let go in qualifying. Then that team was here till about midnight last night. They had damage to the rail extensions of that car, so they'll be looking to reset today. Simona Di Silvestro also suffering damage in that chaos. Mostly cosmetic damage to the front of that car. They also had rear damage to that car and did an engine change as precaution to that car. So hoping to get a better day today.
And good morning to everyone from down on the pit lane here, and what a beautiful, glorious day. My jacket is about to come off, but if you're a Todd Hazelwood fan, and I can understand why you would be, what a great young kid he is, caught up in that same melee that Rihanna's just told us about, not so bad, really superficial damage, not even radiators, a little bit of the front bar, airbox and what have you, so he's out and back at it today, no drama.
And Chaz Moss just rolled straight back into the garage again. You'll see that he's at the bottom of the time sheets there somewhere at the moment. He's been roading tyres, so that was the second set of green tyre, Dunlop soft tyres that have been on that car and gone out and come back straight in. So 2 sets of rotor. We saw him yesterday actually end up on pole position right at the end of the Armour All qualifying session. He was using a roaded set of tyres at that stage too. So keep an eye on Chaz Molson and see how this benefits him later today.
Yeah, good morning. That was actually a really good point, because those rotor tyres on the front of Chaz Moster's car yesterday served him very well. So he was able to knock the qualifying master, Scott McLaughlin, off pole position yesterday, right at the end with a beautiful lap. We just got a great shot there of young Thomas Randall. We've got 2 wild cards this weekend. Thomas Randall in the Mustang and Jack Smith in car 4 for Brad Jones Racing. And Thomas has been very good through the course of the weekend. He's done an outstanding job. Probably got his ears boxed a little bit at the first corner yesterday, and a little bit of experience will go a long way. He's only 23 years of age. He's got a great pedigree and he shows great potential. He's done a beautiful job so far this weekend, operating for the Tickford organisation in their 5th Mustang at the bend. Proper. That's a fair walk there, isn't it?
I've just come from the dark side of the moon. It's a very hefty, brisk walk back to join you in the commentary box. I don't think where Brad Jones' pit is and where you're standing could possibly be further apart. Pretty sure I crossed the state border. So Thomas Randall on screen here at the moment. He did a great job on Friday to be the fastest in the additional driver session, and he was very strong in both practices 1 and 2. He earned a spot in the second portion of Armour All qualifying, and then, as you quite aptly described, got his ears boxed down there at turn 1 yesterday. There was all the usual push and shove down there. Did a nice job in recovery, had a slightly slow pit stop, which was in the order of about 9 seconds, about 4 or 5 longer than you'd want it to be, but marched back to 17th position. And support coming from Scandia, manufacturers of wood and gas fire stoves. They've been part of the Tickford Racing sponsor group for some time, and they presented the car beautifully this weekend. He's got a really positive attitude, an uncluttered mind, and he's been driving really nicely, so he's done a very good job so far. Remember, his campaign so far in the year in the Dunlop Super 2 Series being good enough to have him 4th year to date, and he's cleaned up a victory at Queensland Raceway in the recent past. We're starting to form a view, I beg your pardon, around this car as well, Mark. I asked Andre on the grid yesterday, Andre Heimgartner, the fast Kiwi that's driving car number 7 for Plus Fitness, whether he felt that the subtle changes that were made to the aerodynamic package front and rear of this car had a positive effect. And the jury was out still at that point, but he felt the car was really good from a racing car standpoint yesterday in with the traffic. And so general view is that pretty sure that they've made a gain. I walked into the circuit this morning with Dylan Talabani, the engineer for that car, and quite buoyant in their view. So he's the fastest out there at the moment, 48.6. Will Davison, second fastest, who had big damage on that car. Troubles down at turn 6 yesterday. He's on screen. And they'd only just completed an engine change before he went out there and barely got a lap done, and had this thing pretty heavily beat. And McLaughlin, who's currently in 4th position, is the fastest in both sectors 1 and 2, having done an engine change with that car as a precaution last night as well. So expect to see McLaughlin there or thereabouts in a moment.
This is going to be close to a 47 for McLaughlin. So 48.6 at the moment for Heimgartner. What does McLaughlin do? He's on, he's done fastest sector 1, fastest sector 2, and he does a 47.95. Very nice lap.
So, guys, we just see Shane Van Gisbergen departing the pit lane now. For those that didn't tune in yesterday, this team has been in a world of drama this weekend. They just haven't been able to get on top of their cars. And as Greg Murphy just told you, whilst Chaz Mostert, just 2 garages up, is roading tyres, preparing for his sort of pre-qualifying run, these guys are throwing front shock absorbers at their car.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, Marco? Because I said earlier, I don't think I've ever seen Van Gisbergen off the road as many times in the course of a weekend.
Friday was extraordinary. And the odd part for me is that Garth Tander drove the car. They'll be pairing later in the year for the Pertec Enduro Cup in that additional driver session, and reported that it wasn't too bad. Moster's just gone up to second, by the way. And then when Shane went out in that first practice session, it was frightening. He had an episode not unlike James Courtney on the same day, where every time you looked at him, he was off the edge of the road. He just couldn't get the car to be stable and accept the loads that he wanted to put in it. And you know, he said that he wasn't trying too hard, but I think there was a bit of counsel also coming from the garage at one stage just to drive within limitations, because some of the sector splits didn't look any worse than anybody else's. I think part of it will be the hard tyre feel.
Yep.
But I made the remark before, Mark, after I'd spoken to Bradley, that clearly the way the racetrack behaves, Coulthard's just gone to position 2, is that if you've got something happening as an imbalance in your car, either end, it amplifies here because of the grip situation. We talked yesterday a little bit about the fact that we're on the harder of the 2 Dunlop variations, and some people have asked quite logically, well, why wouldn't you use the softer tyre if there's potentially more grip? But all the simulations show that the loads around this racetrack are Pukekohe-esque, which is where we go next in New Zealand, just south of Auckland, and it would be too punishing for that softer tyre, would overstress and potentially damage the tyre. So all of the drivers, teams and engineers out there have got to come to terms with making this tyre work on this racetrack. And we saw a curiosity yesterday, people doing their fastest laps almost at the very end of stints. So is that the tyre warming up and adapting? Is that rubber building up on the road? Is that drivers learning to pick up the rhythm? I don't know. It's a bit of a secret science, that one.
Well, all the above, basically. And right at the end, so to your point, McLaughlin did his fastest lap 2 laps from the end of the race.
Crazy.
So you never see that, but the reality around that is that's good for racing. What that did is it unfolded in a way where we had early stoppers with the undercut, we had late stoppers with the overcut. Dave Reynolds, for example, versus Mostert earlier on, or Whincup earlier on, they were all able to get away with it based on hardly any tyre degradation. Can you believe the conditions? We've had extraordinary conditions this weekend. Mostly it's been a headwind, then a severe tailwind, cold, blustery conditions today, absolutely beautiful. This is the nicest that it's been for the whole of the weekend. There's hardly a breath of air out there at the moment in terms of breeze. And the UV and sunshine will be interesting to see what that does to the racetrack through the course of the day, because on a big fast circuit like this that you've spoken about, amplifying the issues around car balance, you're basically turning for roughly 50% of the lap. So if you've got a little grip gain or loss, especially from the UV effect, the oil comes to the surface of the road, that will make it tricky for teams to read those conditions later on today. Now remember, in our qualifying format, that this really is a qualifying 0. At the end of this practice session, the top 10 cars will get a free kick and go straight through to Q2. Yes.
Point of order.
Yes.
New nomenclature required, because you described the second practice session on Friday as qualifying 0. So this has to be qualifying 0.1, or you're going to have to give it another name, or we're going to get really confused.
Okay. What do you want to do?
That's your baby. Okay. You're the one that gave, you christened it.
Okay, 0.1. Okay. Wow. Gee, I tell you what, it's a critical crowd, isn't it?
I haven't fully come up to operating temperature yet. Shane Van Gisbergen just having a wild moment coming out of the final corner here. Let's have a look at the onboard version of this. Uphill corner. Still got that trait that we've seen earlier in the weekend that James Courtney's car had as well. Changed direction, disconnected the back. So as soon as he makes that move to the right, he's in stride. Terrible damage yesterday for the Neolon car for Todd Hazelwood. Remember, it was a year ago that he jumped out of the Ford and into a Holden, and then ultimately led him to the ZB Commodore. And at the time, we thought, wow, that's a brave move mid-season from an engineering standpoint to do that. And then we've seen some very impressive performances from this guy, Matt Stone Racing entry, Todd Hazelwood, car number 35, new livery this weekend, and support from Newlong, which I'm sure is greatly appreciated.
Well, he's been a couple of times this year. He's been the fastest 888 Commodore.
And you've remarked, you know, just how impressive that's been in a team that doesn't have the same level of resource. And remember, he's still it's early days in his main supercars career, Greg.
Yeah, you might be able to see drips of oil coming out from underneath the 22 of James Courtney. Looks like they've had a gearbox transaxle oil cooler explode. They did actually change the transaxle in this car last night. He was complaining about a poor shift at the end of the race yesterday, so they've made that change, but unfortunately there's more issues now. So the boys are going to work on it. James is out of the car. He won't be getting back out there for the rest of the session.
Yeah, that's a big job, isn't it? So that's a frustration, particularly after they've already taken an opportunity to change it. Jamie waving to the crowd again with the rear bumper on the way down the hill.
Wow, that was 200 kilometres an hour. Whoa, it's right out sideways going the other way. How's the amount of oversteer he's got? That is a speedway car. I've got to just come in and park it. There's no way you can drive the car when it's that oversteer.
We rarely see emotion on David Couchy's face when he's standing there in the engineering bunker. And Roland's saying, and I'll paraphrase, that's useless, bring him in. But yesterday we saw David, you know, quite animated, quite angry and disappointed.
Give me feedback as soon as possible, please.
That looked pretty horrible, didn't it?
Yeah, definitely better forefront. I think you should consider the rear as well.
So maybe
Please repeat. That change is better. More front grip. I think we should consider the rear in pit lane.
Yeah, so they must be in search of something at the front, and then they're hoping that either another adjustment now to the rear to settle it down, or that a new set of tyres will then mask a multitude of sins. So they must be in search of something more. I mean, it looked crazy pointy. So the question mark is that it's hard to reconcile that will be better, but they may be just they're looking for a trend or a trait out of the adjustments that they've made to the car. They'll have studied a lot of data last night, had heavy debriefs. There's a lot of realism and a lot of brutality in those debriefs. You know, the very best teams, and you've been a huge part of that over a period of time in your career, Mark. You've got to be really honest with yourself and your engineering group about where you're at, what your issues are, and what the primary issue is. It's very easy to get distracted with white noise around the edges. You've got to try and find what the number one thing is that affects performance, drill at it, resolve it, and move to the next thing. And it's easy for emotion to overcome everything and throw the hands and go, it's the worst car I've ever driven, and then it's okay, well, where are we now? Yeah. What does that actually mean?
Yeah, it's very true. Absolutely, and that communication and methodology from a driver feedback perspective and from an engineering group perspective, because often it's not just one person in the engineering silo. It's often a combination of 3 or 4 people that make comment around what that's actually going to do to the car and what the trend is and where you head. So there's a lot of collaboration within the engineering group as Mostert comes up to second with a 48.13, so he's only 0.18 behind McLaughlin. We're not getting too excited yet. There's only 8.5 minutes remaining. We're looking for the top 10 cars.
I think the other thing, you know, we love to get carried away and excited by all the scientific procedures around the business, but I reckon on a track of this level of complexity with so many corners and so many things to get either right or wrong, let's not forget the human component of this. And it's something that a lot of the drivers at a junior level, for example, in the Toyota 86 Racing Series that I'm closer to, they spend a lot of time thinking about technique and first of all fixing their own performance before they start to fiddle around with the car. And there'll even be a little bit of that going on in this field. Make sure that you're maximising your own performance and being honest about that.
That is 100%. And I think when that debrief process is on, and you've spoken about how robust that is, and it's a truth serum session often, the first thing you do at the top of the page is write how I've driven the car. So the first thing is, did I get the best from myself? Did I drive the car properly? Because even when we saw Van Gisbergen off the road so much yesterday, he actually said later in the day that's a flaw of his. Because when you've actually got a car that's not good, you're still paid to keep it on the black stuff. And that was something from yesterday that it was a key takeout. And not very often do you hear Grant McPherson say, mate, you've got to slow down.
Yeah, it was a very frank admission, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Simona Di Silvestro's just moved up a bunch of spots. She's up into position 11 now. Shame yesterday because it was career best qualifying 13th for her. 14th had been the best number prior to that. And unfortunately, she got tangled up in all the crazy stuff that happens in the early part of the race. Ex-convenience branding on Nick Percat's car. Hear that tyre chatter in the background at turn 14. Year on year, they've changed the livery of the car at this venue around those colours. We've been seeing the car presented in different ways, and a nice job yesterday by these guys. They got 2 tyres on the car in 3.8 seconds to jump David Reynolds at the time. They ultimately lost out to the battle that they're having with David Reynolds, but it was a monstrous recovery from where they qualified. They were nowhere in quali, and that car was pretty effective as a race car. He's just moved up 14 spots, that's a chunk, into 12th position. Todd Hazelwood's also moved up a bunch of places into 10th. Now, starting to drift our attention towards that top 10. It's headed by McLaughlin on a 47.9. Holdsworth now position 3 in the Botlow entry.
E3. I'll get you to try and put your rear bar on one click for me for the inlet.
And Todd Hazelwood is 10th. So McLaughlin, Mostert, Holdsworth, Davison, Coulthard, Heimgartner, Di Pasquale, Waters, Reynolds and Hazelwood. Reid?
They've resorted to using the pit board from Mark Winterbottom. He doesn't have a radio at the moment. Not a major inconvenience, but just a little frustration for them for practice this morning.
Thanks for that. And sometimes it's just more of an annoyance, as you say, than having any great operational impact. And it can be as simple as the earpiece is not fully connecting. Sometimes, depending on the wheel work that's going on, which there's been a bit of it here this weekend for 2 drivers, not impossible to yank the cord out of your earpieces off your helmet, and then all of a sudden there's no comms. Not the sort of thing you want during the race, though. Here's the replay at turn 6. And Shane Van Gisbergen and Grant McPherson just asking on the radio now, do you want to reverse that, whatever that change may be? And then because of the way the radio scans, somebody else jumped over the top and I didn't hear the answer. So it's an open question. Does he want to reverse it? We'll see. I think yes might be the answer. Greg?
Yeah, a lot of green tyres going on there now, guys, obviously, as we get to the end of this session. Scott McLaughlin just rolled out on a green set of practice tyres, P1s they were, so part of the allocation for testing. He's gone out, they made a little ride height change to the 17, and just on Chaz Molster, pretty happy with that car. Another little ride height change actually on that one, just before they rolled on a set of roaded tyres that he rode in early in the session.
And Neil, to answer your question, Grant McPherson asking Shane Van Gisbergen if he wants to put that change back, I reckon that was a rear geometry change because the guys were right in underneath the rear fenders. Hard to see, and they're going back in under there now, so maybe they are putting it back.
Yeah.
And Jamie Sawyer's just put a set of front dampers in his before they sit out on green tyres. So lots of changes still going on in this garage, mate, late in this session.
Still fishing, aren't they? They're still looking for something that gives them a trend to chase.
Yeah, do you reckon like that might have been a stiffer spring? I reckon the way that car looked before, that it was so pointy, it probably put a stiffer spring in the front to take some of that pointiness out of it. So it might not just be a damper change. I'd be thinking they probably want to stiffen the front of the car up. And normally, with a fresh tyre, to stiffen the car will normally give you a little yield there.
Now, this number that's just popped up from McLaughlin, who we picked up on screen, that's an awesome shot, sweeping left to right to understand the pace of the cars down the bottom of the hill. That number that he's popped up in the first sector is pretty impressive. 40.5 in sector 1. He's got his teammate tucked in behind him at the moment. The second sector timing intermediate comes up just on the exit of the little uphill run out of turn 13. He's on the approach to that.
This will give us a guide.
So where's he at here? He's done a 32.3, which is actually a couple of tenths slower than his own best. So the Sector World Championship at the moment is being won by McLaughlin in 1 and 2 and Will Davison in sector 3.
He got the curb at the bottom of turn 10 too hard, which flipped him into the left-hand curb at 11 too hard, which then made turn 12 too tight. So he lost about 0.3 of a second in that zone.
See his turning point there. He had the front left wheel some millimetres parked over the edge of the road, trying to find every little bit of space. So 7.8, and you heard the margin in the background. So this is what Mark was talking about. I was enthused by the pace and the look of the car here, but look how much it flies. And what that does, looks awesome, but it changes your line and it delays getting back to full throttle. or part throttle, actually down there. Simona's on screen here at the moment, 13th in car number 78. Third of the Nissans. Andre has done a personal best in sector 1. Heimgartner, that is, in position number 6. And Gary Jacobson's just one position ahead of Simona. So 6th, 12th, 13th, and Rick Kelly had a tough day yesterday. Got a penalty for his role in the troubles at turn 6 with James Courtney and Will Davison. He's down in 16th at the moment.
So currently 5 Mustangs: McLaughlin, Mostert, Holdsworth, Davison, Coulthard, then Heimgartner, Di Pasquale, Waters, Whincup and Reynolds. Reynolds is 10th. Now remembering in qualifying 0.1 that we're looking for that top 10. Van Gisbergen is down in 18th at the moment. Mark Winterbottom, who was very strong yesterday, he's right down in, he's further down, 22nd. Golding now has come up and he's actually 8th. So James Golding has done a good job there for Gary Rogers Motorsport. Heimgartner comes up one more spot, up into 5th.
He's consistently quick,
Isn't he?
Chaz Mostert, 2nd at the moment, also quick. Fastest we've seen in the mid-sector. Out of the final corner, we'll get a read on this lap.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. And
7-8.
it goes top. Good job.
7-7, I beg your pardon.
Currently
Yes,
P1 with that side. 50 seconds remaining. Watch the cars on that behind you.
It was good work. Cam Waters just moved up into 3rd position as well. So 47.79, pretty close to a 47.8 there for Mostert. Then McLaughlin, what are you seeing?
A couple of cars off the road there.
30
As
seconds.
Cam Waters attacked turn 1. There were 2 cars in the runoff road. There's Macaulay. And there's another one off to the right. There you go, Jack LeBrock in the truck assist Techno Commodore.
We could just clip that off and then run that in repeat. There's a couple of cars off the road there.
Yeah, it's happened a lot.
Save you a little bit of work for the rest of the day.
Exactly right. So how was Adam de Borre there? He's the king of understatement. That's a pretty solid job there, Chaz. Pretty solid job. That's a very good job to be at the top of this field. He's only 0.05 in front of McLaughlin. McLaughlin's now in the pits, so that's good enough. Down in 10th is Di Pasquale. Now we've just missed Simona Di Silvestro has popped up to 9th, so she's going to get through that free kick stage. She'll go to Q2.
Now, understand again the implications of all this. Whincup 13th, Van Gisbergen 24th position. Just amazing. So the flag's well and truly out. There are still several cars to complete their lap. Rick Kelly just completed his. He's in 19th position. Will Davison's still out there. There's still actually quite a bunch of cars, so it's not impossible that things don't shake up. Golding's 11th. It's a good job. He's actually had some really buoyant performances in the recent past in the Boost Mobile entry. Where did Todd Hazelwood drop in? 14th place for him. His lead. Personal best in Sector 1 actually moved up a spot as a result of that lap. So the Botlow car is now sitting in 3rd position on a 48 flat. Will Davison's come back into the pit lane, as has David Reynolds. Nick Hercat's on a lap here. Where did Nick end up? At the moment he's sitting in 17th position. He's done a personal best in Sector 2. He was really unhappy with the car earlier yesterday, but smartened up nicely as a race car, and they were pretty strong here last year as well. So this sets the tone for Armour All qualifying to come. Is there some speed left in Nick Hercat? No, actually he matched his time all but. So he did a 49.09 on that lap that we just witnessed the completion of, and he did a 49.05 as his fastest lap. So Mostert, car number 55, Super Cheap Auto Racing, the fastest at the end of our final practice session. Next time we're going to see the cars, it'll be for Armour All qualifying, and it's the progressive qualifying system. And so the top 10 from this session, they move into the second portion of Armour All qualifying. And the bottom 16 will battle it out here, and that was Adam de Borre that was in conversation there. Simona Di Silvestro. Simona, when the clock stopped and everybody was sorted, has done a really nice job to be 9th. So building on the promise that was seen yesterday when she qualified in 13th position. So here's the confirmation of the Practice 4 results. The OTR Supersprint. We're at the Bend. We're about 100 odd kilometres to the southeast of Adelaide, this beautiful venue on a glorious day at the moment. Lots of sunshine out there and very different day on day. And you can see where your favourite drivers have popped into the charts here. Now, the reason that the next group are dulled off is that they will take no further part in the battle. I beg your pardon, they will take part in the battle in the first portion of qualifying, but the top 10, they don't take no further part in that session, and they move to the second portion of Armour All qualifying. I'll untangle my tongue and give it to Murph.
Thank you, Crompo. With the guy that tops the timesheets. Well done. Practice 4, mate. Straight through, obviously, to Q2. As always, Adam DeBoro, pretty understated and giving you some credit. You know, pretty decent job there. How did you feel?
I felt pretty good. I actually feel like I learnt a bit on the drive in this morning. I was actually following Crompo on the road, so saw his lines and yeah, tuned me up pretty good out there. But car feels a bit better than yesterday. Same thing. You know, it's good to come out of yesterday, come in today, make a few more changes, and still tidy the car up. But yeah, pretty happy with the time. But yeah, I think it's still old mate next doors. Might have a little bit more for us, so we just still got to improve just a little bit more. Yeah,
Adam said you were looking for a little bit of front, and he seemed to think that might have actually worked for you guys. And you didn't seem to make too many changes, only very small ones during that session. A lot of focus on tyre, revolving tyres around, warming them up, roading them.
Yeah, for sure. It's such a smooth surface here, so everyone's got different tyre plans. People know different cars have different things that they want from the car if they work a bit better on a used or a new. So after yesterday, our car feels a little bit better on a slightly used tyre. So we'll yeah, use it today, see how we go.
Thanks, buddy. Good luck.
Mona Di Silvestro, yesterday you had your best ever qualifying in supercars. Today you're finishing practice in 9th. Are we on for something today?
Well, hopefully. I think that's why we show up to the race. I know it's really good to be in the top 10. I think pretty happy, especially with just having one set of tires. We did a few changes to the car. I'm not quite sure it fits the best, so we have to look at it. But yeah, really happy. The team did an amazing job getting the car back in one piece. When I rolled out, it was going straight, so pretty happy about that. So yeah, no, it's awesome for the guys because they had a lot of work over the night, so it's good.
You seem like you arrived here with a sense of confidence. What's that from?
Yeah, I don't know. No, you know, I think, you know, sometimes as a driver you just overthink a lot, and, you know, I'm just come here and enjoy it and have fun, and it seems to be working. So, yeah, I think I'm getting the Aussie life going, I think, so it's good, yeah.
Maybe it was that trip to Uluru.
Maybe that's what it was. Got all, like, back to, exactly, like really Australian, so we're good to go now.
Good luck in qualifying.
Thank you.
Now, you know the difficulty in interrupting really detailed engineering debriefs. Well, this one here just has been pretty serious. I was watching your body language, mate.
Coming to the end anyway. It's all right.
Sadly, we're a long way from the end of this weekend, though, mate. I stood over in the corner there, and you know how it works, Jamie. I watched a lot of guys and girls down there roading tyres, getting their plan organised. In this garage, there's a lot of bits and changes getting thrown to the cars. Still late in the day. You're not there yet, mate.
Yeah, not there yet. No, we had a big gain yesterday, but haven't really found a gain today at all, unfortunately. So not sure what to say. It's more of a fundamental rather than a little 10 newtons of spring or a couple of clicks on the bar. It's something a bit more major than that. So I think we'll go hunting.
J-Dub, when Murph asked you on Friday and he said, don't say it's everything in the car so people at home understand, because when we watch you drive the car, it is interesting to know what you're battling with. And of course you said everything, because it was everything. Is it still front, rear, it's a little bit of everything, not a single thing?
No, it is a bit. It's not one particular thing. If I was the only car out there, I'd say I nailed that lap and the car's pretty good, you know, and you come in and boom, everyone else is a second faster. So it's a fundamental. I'm not just saying, we were out of balance or we're poor in one particular area. I did quite a big lap then, and the car was always all over the place sliding around, but got a good lap in. So we just don't have the actual overall grip at the moment.
Thanks, mate. That's a really good heads up. Appreciate it.
Cheers, thank you. Cheers.
There's been some good speed in the Davo Mobile, Milwaukee racer this weekend, but not very rewarding as far as outcomes go, mate. Yesterday was, where do we start? Engine problems in qual when you're looking like you were going to be right at the front in Armour All qualifying, and then that shunt. This morning, though, you've rolled out pretty good.
So no, we'll try and redeem ourselves today. We've, it was okay then. We actually did our quickest lap on a used tyre from Friday and didn't get it together on a new tyre at the end there. So, you know, we're talking small margins, which is always motivating. You know, we know we've got a great car and it's really enjoyable. But just trying to fine-tune it. It's a tough place, but certainly keen for today. Yesterday was a bit shattering. You know, I've learned over all these years, 200 rounds, you know, not to dwell on things for too long, because yesterday was definitely a missed opportunity. But hey, what can you do? That's the way it goes. So we'll try and bounce back.
Just quickly, how did you see that first lap kind of incident there that with you and you were 3 wide there? You know, did you see sort of any blame, or was it just a racing incident from your point of view?
Whatever. I had no idea Rick was even there. I mean, JC and I were, we touched doors at 190, 200 k an hour through the corner before. I know that corner you can go around the outside. It's heavily cambered, and I knew I'd gone very deep down the outside because the inside was banked up behind Jamie. Left James heaps of room. Was all very chilled, no dramas at all, and was pretty shocked when I got a hit. So yeah, pretty ambitious by Rick. I think going 3 wide into there, someone was always going to come off worse for wear, and obviously I was that one.
Go get him today, mate. Good luck.
Cheers, thanks. Cheers.
Will Davis